do not assume. Never, never assume when it comes to your hormones. And if you feel like, man, my hormones are just crazy and nobody can figure out why, well, you probably didn't have a full picture done of your hormones. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Jacque Show. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I've been getting a lot on TikTok. I didn't realize that so many people didn't understand estrogen detoxification. So we're going to dive into that today. It's really easy. It's a lot of heady words, and I'll try to go slow with it. But hopefully at the end of this, you'll be able to understand, whether you're a man or a woman, what that looks like whenever you have too much of a certain estrogen. Now, when we talk about this topic, we have to talk about the standard medical treatment and the standard medical analysis for your hormones, for estrogen. Now, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go and do a blood draw. They're going to do a serum blood draw to see what's going on with your hormones. And when you say hormones, it's going to be really, really basic. It's like saying you took a full spine x-ray, but you only took an x-ray of like the pinky. Like that's not even in the spine. Like it's an incomplete picture. So if you've been to an endocrinologist and they tested your typical stuff, testosterone, you got your progesterone, you got your estradiol or E2, and that's it, and maybe a cortisol in there, and that's it. It's not a complete picture of what your hormones actually look like. So before really diving into this, I want you to even just Google, just type in steroid hormone pathway chart. Steroid hormone pathway chart. Okay? Because you'll see that when we talk about estrogen, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of phases, there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of quote unquote industry secrets out there from bodybuilders and fitness people. And, you just need to take this and you just need to take that. And it's some of the stuff that drives me up a freaking wall. Because still to this day, I'm on TikTok and I'm doing a video. And I'm like, oh, hey, they're talking about estrogen, blah, blah, blah. And somebody is going to get on there. I guarantee it. I could do it today. And they're going to get on and they're going to say, hey, what can I take for that? Like, you don't even know. You don't even know where you fall in this category. So let's really dive into this. And again, I'm not saying this to like be insensitive or anything. I'm saying this because light really needs to be shed on this. And to me, one of the best times to find out what your hormonal blueprint looks like is for a young girl when she goes through puberty. She has her first menses. Give her a couple months or so, then do a sample, do a Dutch test on her. See what the hormones look like, because if there's any sort of hormonal abnormalities, then we can nip it in the bud then versus 20 years of the same damaged pattern. Okay? Men, same thing. For boys hit puberty. If you're like, oh my gosh, this kid's going nuts. He's breaking out everywhere. Well, is it an overconversion of his testosterone and things down into your DHT pathway? This could be dangerous, and it could be very anabolic and make him very hostile and angry. Is it? That's where a test would come into play. I'm plugging the Dutch test because it's it's my number one hormone test that we run. And it's so clinically evident. And I'm laughing because a friend of mine, Brooke Rossi, and I were talking about this. Some knucklehead decided to give unsolicited advice to her and say that it's pseudoscience or something. Like it's not accurate. It's pseudoscience. I'm like, did you even know? Like, you sound like an idiot. Anyways. So Brooke and I had a good laugh about that. But what we're going to be talking about today is going to be the different phases of estrogen detoxification. But when we talk about estrogen, we need to talk about what estrogen is and how many there actually are. So in this, again, speaking slowly, in this, we have what's known as your E1, okay, or estrone, E2, or estradiol, and E3, or Estriol. Okay, so there's 3 primary estrogens. Did you even know that? So if someone's like, you're estrogen dominant. Like, to me, I'm like, which one? Which one is it? And why? Okay. Are you dominant in E1, E2, or E3? Now, E2 is usually the one that's going to have some problems associated with it. But guess what? You have your estrone that, again, if you're too low, okay, if your primaries are too low, but you feel like you have symptoms, of estrogen dominance, the industry secrets are going to be like, you need to take some DIM. That'll help to tighten you up, and that'll help to drop some excess weight off there for you. DIM will be good for you. And then all of a sudden you're like, it feels like my joints are going to explode. Why does this hurt so bad? Oh, I broke a bone. Why am I breaking bones all of a sudden? Because too little estrogen causes osteopenia, causes osteoporosis. That's why a lot of women have issues going into menopause if your hormones aren't balanced properly. If you've had a full hysterectomy and your hormones aren't at like the right levels, then you can develop these types of conditions, which isn't good. All right. We already have issues with our elderly population. If they fall and break a hip, their mortality rate, I think it's like after 6 months, like they're basically, they're perished. They're out. That's it. Okay. And that's after they break a hip. So again, rewinding this all the way back to puberty, when you're going through puberty, this would be a beautiful time to get a picture to say, what do my hormones look like now? And then let's learn about them so that I actually know what the heck is going on whenever I go to see a doctor or whenever I do go to get tested. And you'll know the right test to have done. Pretty cool. So, primaries, right? Estrone, estradiol, estriol. Now, estrone is going to come from a conversion pathway. Same thing with the aromatase enzyme. Okay, aromatase is an enzyme that's going to break down one hormone, bring it into another hormone. For the estrone, it's going to be more the androsterone that's going to be converted down and going into your estrone. Your aromatase activity for your estradiol is going to be more in relation to your testosterone. Okay, and this is where and I know we're talking about female estrogen detoxification, but this is important for men too, because men will be like, oh, I've got low testosterone, I'm just going to inject testosterone. And I'm like, well, brother, like you're trying to take testosterone because you're showing signs of being estrogen dominant. You know that if you give more testosterone, you're going to be more estrogen dominant. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to go for gynecomastia? Are you trying to do that? Because you're going to. Okay? Because if we have more building blocks above and then we increase our conversion rate between our androgens, basically, our male dominant hormones, to our estrogens, or more female dominant hormones, then we're going to be more estrogen dominant. And as men, estrogen dominant men, not a good place for us to be. Not cosmetically, we'll be puffy, we'll have breasts ourselves, we'll have irritability issues, we'll have sleep issues, we'll be emotional, we won't be able to handle any increased stress around the house. We're just going to be like these giant babies that are just trying to shove testosterone in our butts, right? So, and yeah, I'm poking fun at it, pun intended, because this is so big in this industry and stuff. I don't understand it. So anyways, so we have the conversion then from your testosterone into your estradiol. And then estradiol has a back and forth where it basically estradiol goes over into your estriol, okay, or your E3. It's the only way that E3 is basically developed is through that. And then you can have a pathway coming up from what's known as your 16-hydroxy, which we'll go into next, okay? Now, the properties of estrogen, right? The properties of estrogen itself does cause cell growth or cell proliferation. Cell growth is a lot easier to say, all right? So that's why when we have like breast cancer, we've got other types of estrogen receptor positive cancers. Okay, we want to make sure we see what's going on with our estrogens. If we are too high, then why? Okay, when we're talking about the conversion rate going from your testosterone into your estradiol, okay, there's a lot of lifestyle factors that can really go into that. Okay, stress can be a big component to it. We have sugar. Okay, so processed sugar, regular sugar, coconut sugar can increase that conversion rate. Alcohol is a huge one, huge one that will convert your testosterone into your estrogen. Okay, I've had guys that I've worked with, they're like, man, after a night of drinking, my nipples are like really sensitive. This is really strange. This is really weird. Why? Well, because you're converting your testosterone to estrogen and you had a surplus and now you're feeling that. Okay? Same thing with women. Same thing can happen. There's certain times during women's cycles where they'll crave alcohol. And I'm like, why do I crave alcohol? And it could be because your body's saying, hey, you're deficient in estrogen over here. I need you to drink some alcohol, maybe a little wine. It'll convert your testosterone to estrogen and will build up your estrogen a little bit. Okay, it's your innate intelligence trying to tell you to have a drink. I don't always condone that. Not always. I don't really condone it. But there's other things that you can do to really understand that. Okay, so we talked about stress, sugar, energy stuff. So the fake energy drinks, energy supplementation, the stuff that's not natural, that stuff can also cause an increase in conversion down into your estradiol. Okay, so that's your phase ones right there. Now, when we talk about estrogen dominance, it is imperative to also talk about our progesterone. Okay, again, men and women. Progesterone is that hormone that gets us to cycle. Now, this is female specific, okay? No matter what the news is telling you. Men cannot have a menstrual cycle, nor can they get pregnant. So you have progesterone that's allowing your body to go through your normal hormonal fluctuations. You go through your cycle, you bleed during your menses, and then you recover afterwards. And you have like these ups and downs of progesterone and estrogen throughout that cycle, okay? If you take a look, okay, and you actually have a blown up picture here, you take a look and you see, okay, you're like, all right, I'm going to just say, Susie, your estrogens look great. All of your levels are within the normal range. Super, super, super good. But, okay, your progesterone is less than where it's supposed to be. What that does is it widens the gap between your progesterone and your estrogen. And there's one of your first ways of being estrogen dominant. Okay. So even if you have normal estrogens, you can still be seen as estrogen dominant. This is also where people will screw up again, because you'll be seen as if you have too much estrogen. You have the perfect amount, but your symptoms say too much. If you treat based off of your symptoms and you push that detox pathway, break down your phase ones and throw them into your phase twos, you're just continuing to plummet down your hormonal profile. You're draining it all. So say your progesterone, I've had 20-year-olds where the progesterone's in a postmenopausal range, and you're like, well, now I'm going to bring down my estrogen because my estrogen's too high because my doctor told me my estrogen was too high. And then you tank that down, and then you have two ranges in a 20-year-old or 30, whatever your age is. We have two different categories. The progesterone's postmenopausal, estrogen's postmenopausal. This isn't good. You treated a symptom. You didn't treat the cause, and you get the full picture as to why your body was responding the way that it is, or the way that it was. Okay? So that's the first thing. And I wanted to throw in like the dominances with the detoxifications because it's important to note. Okay, they kind of all come together. People think they're estrogen dominant, so then they want to detox them. Okay? I am so hard pressed to detox somebody. And it might sound counterintuitive. You don't run a detox in my protocol system until you have gone through the gauntlet. You've had your hormones tested to make sure you even have hormones that can be detoxed. And then you make sure your gut is intact too, because the last thing I want you to do is be throwing a bunch of toxins into a colon that doesn't move. We'll get there. Okay? So phase 1, E1, E2, E3. Now, from there, we break down. Okay? Now we have our protective pathway. It's a 2-hydroxy or 2-OH, E1. Then you have a 4-hydroxy, E1. And then you have a 16-hydroxy, E1. Okay? Now, say that you have normal phase 1s, normal progesterone, and then you look down at your metabolites. Okay, that's what those are called. These secondaries are your metabolites. Okay, you look at these ones and your gauges are really, really high. Like, okay, so they're really high. Where are we funneling out here? Now, the Dutch test is great, and then it gives you this gauge off to the right-hand side, a little pie chart, and it'll say, okay, of the hormones that are coming from your primaries, where are they going? Now, if you have high level of the 16-hydroxy, okay, 16-hydroxy can be a big, big, big estrogen dominant pusher symptom-wise. You can feel like you're just constantly estrogen dominant, even though your primaries look good. Or does this get tricky? Well, in a serum blood test, you're not going to get 16-hydroxy. They're not going to test that. You can't test that. Okay? So if your hormones look great, normal progesterone, normal estrogens, and then all of a sudden, you're like, I still feel like I am estrogen dominant. What in the world is going on? Doctor thinks you're crazy, slaps you on birth control because birth control apparently cures everything nowadays. I'll be excited to hear it say, oh, birth control can cure cancer now. Like, no, it causes it. But anyways, this is another layer, again, deep into why you might be feeling the way that you're feeling. So a lot of like listeners and stuff that are out there, man, if you're listening to this, this goes for you as well. Okay, this goes for you. And also, if you have your wife over there, and maybe you're listening to this podcast together, or you're like, oh my gosh, like this stuff actually makes sense. Like that's my goal here, is to make this make so much sense that you don't have to have a doctorate to understand this stuff. You can go to your wife and be like, listen, I think I may have found something. Those doctors didn't test fully. We can find out the true cause and the true reason why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Because to me, that then reestablishes hope, that reestablishes control back into your life so that you can get back on track and get feeling the way that you want to feel, the way that you should feel. You should feel great every single day. Okay? So that's your phase ones going into your phase twos. Okay? That whole process is phase one, detoxification. Okay? Phase one, when your primaries, estrone, estradiol, estriol, break down into your smaller parts or metabolites that are your 16-hydroxy, 4-hydroxy, and 2-hydroxy. Okay? It's your phase one. Now, the other pathway that is nicht sehr gut, not very good, is your 4-hydroxy. Okay, you're going to learn here that there's really only one pathway that your estrogen should be flowing down, and that's why DIM is very widely used. Sulforaphane, broccoli extracts, things like that are also being highly used in this because the DIM and the I3C, and then the indole 3 carbonyl, and then the cruciferous vegetables help to buffer down the 2-hydroxy pathway. Now, the 4-hydroxy is the worst of all the pathways that it can go down. That's why the arrow on the chart is going to be red. When you're looking at this, you're like, okay, so if it's coming down this channel, this pathway, what's happening? If you have an overabundance of your estrogens pushing down into this pathway, you're putting yourself at a very high risk for potentially developing some sort of cancer, okay? And this is going to be a hormonally based cancer. So we have to make sure that when again, this is not something that you're going to get on a serum test. This is not going to be something that you get at your endocrinologist. We have to get that full picture of your hormones, because if 4-hydroxy goes unregulated and then it comes down and it creates from 4-hydroxy, it creates 8-OHDG. It's an oxidative stress. It causes oxidative damage to the body. Okay. If we do that, all right, we have inflammations, how things start, right? Then we go into catabolic physiology, things break down, deal with some insulin resistance there as well. And then oxidative stress and damage is the last phase. It's when things go really awry in the body. So if we can get this and we can see this, we can say, oh, whoa, this is all of the hormones are funneling down the bad pathway. We need to buffer that out. Okay, but there's a strategic approach to this, right? If your thought process, okay, because everyone that I have seen and talked to and listened to, I don't want to say and taken with a grain of salt, but like if a lot of people are like, well, then just dim it. Well, look upstream. Are you over converting? Are they breaking down all their estrogens too quickly? And then it's still going down into the 4-hydroxy pathway. Okay. Or if we look at where we talk about phase two, is there like a buildup of back pressure is what I call it. Okay. Because then what's going to happen? Your estrogens aren't getting out of the body. They're not going out to the colon. They're not going out to the colon. Well, then they're just going to keep building up more back pressure, and then they're just going to start stockpiling it and these other metabolites, and then you're going to build up your other estrogens, and then it can surplus over into your androgens. Okay. It's like having free flowing water coming out of a hose, and then thump, you put your finger on the hose, and the water just keeps building up back pressure, and it fills up back. Same thing can happen. Okay. Or if you have water fountain and you plug the one hole, and then that pool starts spilling over. Okay. When we talk about these pathways, we have to understand the cause and effects of them, but also understand that we can't just be quick to medicate. We can't just be quick to supplement these particular tracks. We have to understand, do a full analysis of all three phases of estrogen detox to make sure that we're choosing which one needs the most attention at this time. Because again, say for example, your arrows are really red on all of your hormones, right? Every single one of your hormones are really red. Okay. And if you look at a Dutch test, you'll know what I'm talking about. And you look at that, you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much estrogen. Oh God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then my question would be, well, did you poop? Do you poop? No. Well, let's start there. Start in reverse, right? Because phase 1 breaks them down. Phase 2 is where we get some genetic hangups. Okay. Phase 2 is where we talk about COMT deficiencies. We can talk about issues with MTHFR, where we just don't methylate properly. And what you'll see is you'll see the 2-hydroxy pathway will send function or hormones off to the left-hand side of your chart there. And then you'll have this little methylation fan gauge to say, how well am I methylating this stuff? If your methylation is super low and your 2-hydroxy is like really high and it's just not converting, then it can be a genetic SNP that's getting in the way. Or you can be deficient on some B vitamins. You can be deficient on some magnesium, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of people are stressed out. Stress burns your magnesium super quickly. So that's why a lot of our like adrenal protocols and stuff, you'll have magnesium in one of the products that we give, because that'll help with the adrenals, but it'll also help with buffering out those excess hormones there for you. Okay. So phase 1 breakdown is where you get the metabolites. Phase 2 is how well is your body methylating or detoxing this stuff. It could also be due to having more of a sluggish liver. So have you been on Accutane before in your life? Something that damages the liver. Are you a chronic alcoholic? Do you just straight up damage your liver on a daily basis? Do you do oral steroids? Do you do oral birth control? Anything that you take in orally is going to put a lot of damage and stress on that liver. And if you don't clean the liver out, then your body's going to get more bogged down and it's not going to be able to run as smoothly as it should. Livers to me is like it's like an air filter in your car. All right. Luckily in your car, you could take it out and replace it, put another one in. But for me, I've got K&N air filters because I love them. So I take them out, I hose them down, put them all back together and slap them back in my car. And then there's a couple other steps, but for all of the people who know how to use them, I don't just haphazardly toss them back in. But anyways, so I hose them all out so that way I can get my money's worth out of my liver, just like I would out of my air filters. So you have to make sure that if you take a look into, your liver function, if you've ever had liver enzymes that are really high, or if you currently do have liver enzymes that are really high, then it means that if the enzymes are already at a high level, that means the damage is already done to the liver. We have to start paying attention to that, because if we can't use the liver properly, we're not detoxing. Okay. It's going to be really difficult for us. So then our hormones are going to suffer. It means it doesn't matter how much DIM you try to put into your body, you're just throwing more and more and more down the 2-hydroxy pathway, and it can't go anywhere. It's not going anywhere. Okay. Because you're just not methylating it. Okay. You're not detoxing it. So that's a big mistake that a lot of people run into. The biggest mistake is then your phase 3 of estrogen detox, because people are like, what are you talking about? Estrogen detox in the colon? What? I know. It sounds pretty abstract, but it's not. So when you have methylation that takes place, Okay, think of it as like you're putting together this beautiful package, like Amazon Prime. You're putting putting together this beautiful package here, and then that package gets dropped out into the colon. You're like, okay, boom, estrogen, my job here is done. Liver did good. Let's enjoy life, right? But you don't poop. Okay, and I just we reposted another video. How many times do you poop? And I'm like, 2 to 4 times a day is normal. And people are like, I go once every 2 to 4 days, or once a week, or I don't even poop. That's a huge problem. If women and men, if you guys don't poop, your hormones will never be right. They won't. Okay? Because there's also probably some sort of infection or some other stressor that's getting in the way as well that's making you constipated. If you're not going 2 to 4 times a day, that's a serious, serious problem. It's not even like, oh, poop's funny, that's laughable. No, this is clinical. This is serious. You can't get rid of the toxins that you broke down from your food to get it out of the body. You're going to be sick, or you already are sick, and you're not going to be able to recover because your body is bogged down. It cannot eliminate. That's why bowel movements is called elimination. You eliminate, you detox, you eliminate this stuff. So then going up into the phase 1s and the phase 2s, you're like, well, I'm just going to take some fad supplement that's on the market. It says, oh, this is going to be an estrogen detoxifier. Cool. Going to take a whole bunch of it, take a whole bunch of it. And you're like, I still feel kind of crappy. Still feel about the same. I don't really know if this stuff is working. And then again, my whatever would be, hey, how are you pooping? Oh, what does that have to do with it? Well, if you're not pooping, all of those aids, it could be the best supplement in the world. That's what I want you to understand. It could be the best supplement for estrogen detoxification. I could put you on an estrogen detoxification protocol. But if I don't address your stool and you're not going to the bathroom, then I am doing you a disjustice or disservice. And I am charging you to give you bad care. That's not what I do. Okay? So we have to make sure when it comes to detoxification, when it comes to estrogen, we have to look at the stool. We have to. Okay? Again, constipation, you're not getting it out, but there's a marker in there that actually is a cancer marker too. It's called beta-glucuronidase. I've talked about this extensively. Beta-glucuronidase basically takes that Amazon Prime package and it handles it like it's your child. Is that for me? Is that for me? Is that for me? Rips it open like, oh, what's this? And it doesn't know what it is. Whatever, not for me. Throws it back away, in your body, it basically unpackages this perfect estrogen package and it throws it back out into the bloodstream. And you're like, what the hell did you do that for? That was a perfectly good package. And beta-glucuronidase is like, this is a bio world. You got to get past me first, right? So sassy beta-glucuronidase. So when we're pressing that issue, when we're pressing that detoxification, going from phase 2 into that phase 3, if we don't talk about phase 3, then your detoxification pathways are never going to work. And that's why we'll usually start people in reverse. Okay. I've had women have complete hormonal breakthroughs just by working with their gut. I've had women get pregnant from infertility with just working with their gut. And people are like, how is that possible? Well, your gut, everything that you take, supplement, food, water, drinks, etc., everything you take passes through your mouth, down through your gut. So if your gut is able to break down the food properly, it's able to sterilize the food, your stomach acid's good, no bacterial candida overgrowth, nothing like that's going on, and everything is peachy, things in life are also a lot more peachy. Okay? So when we look at how your body pushes out from phase 2 into phase 3, we have to look at the phase 3 stuff. Okay? Otherwise, it's not only is it imperative, it's dangerous if you don't. Because think about this. Think about you've got breast cancer. Okay? It's estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. Okay? You're throwing a whole bunch of money into supplements to break down phase 1, phase 2, and you're throwing it down into your gut. but nobody ever ran a stool test on you to see if you had high beta glucuronidase, which means you're basically fertilizer feeding your cancer, because that beta glucuronidase throws the estrogen back into the bloodstream. Estrogen in blood gets taken to where there's cancer. Estrogen causes cell proliferation again, remember, cell growth, and therefore you're fueling your cancer. So you can think that you're doing something really good, but if you miss the most important piece and you're not having bowel movements and you're recirculating that estrogen, well, bad prognosis. This is why all of these pieces need to be talked about. They need to be discussed. That's why I want to hijack the healthcare system so much, especially in schools. Like, I want girls growing into full blown women knowing all of what I just talked about, because they should. Why is this not taught about? I don't even remember. What are we even taught about in health class? The standard American diet? Let's eat shitty food. We're going to look like shitty people, have no energy, and that's just it. Let's eat these horrible food groups, right? Or, hey, welcome to health class. This is your junior year, your sophomore year, whatever. Welcome to health class. Here are your tests. You're going to be taking these home. This is part 1 of your assignment. You're going to go home. You're going to run a stool test analysis, and then we're going to teach you how to do the Dutch test analysis. And then once those results come back, we'll sit down as a class and we'll go through what it means. And that way you can fully understand what's going on with your hormones and what's going on with your body, so you can have the healthiest life possible. That would be pretty amazing. Screw the textbooks, right? That's how my mind works. Because the sooner we can do this, the sooner we can understand this, then that means, okay, and I know a big whatever right now, oh, abortion. Well, or you can learn about natural family planning and have girls have their cycles normal or normalize, and they learn how to track ovulation to make sure they're not doing something that they shouldn't be doing at the wrong time, which could increase their risk. Okay? And I'm not trying to teach kids to have sex at all, but I'm saying if we're worried about these unplanned pregnancies and leading to freaking murdering a baby, maybe we should just start with basic hormonal health. The other thing on top of that is if you do that and you have miscarriages or you have abortions, it has horribly detrimental impacts to women's hormones. Okay? So again, not to be insensitive, but kind of insensitive. If you've done that, one of the two of those, whether it's an accidental miscarriage there, or you chose to have an abortion, might want to get your hormones tested just to be sure that everything balanced back out. Okay, because I've seen a lot of really bad stuff happen post, and it's not nice. Anyways, going back into the hormone and the detoxification, etc. Okay, if you're like, well, doc, where do I even start? How do I do this stuff? Well, if you want to start the right way, call the office and get a stool test done, and then call the office and get a Dutch test. The Dutch is going to be one that could be a little bit different, because if you have an irregular cycle, you think you have PCOS, you've got endo, or you're not sure when your cycle is really going to hit, then you're going to want to do more of the cycle map. Okay, it gives you the whole month's worth of like what your hormones are doing. If you're regular, like, hey, 28 days like clockwork, do the Dutch Plus. Okay, you stack the two of those together, and then you come together and you're like, all right, what do we do? Boom, you build it from there. If you're like, well, I don't have the money for that, which it's going to be a whole different podcast that I do. If you're like, where do I just start just so I can start feeling better now? Start with the gut. Okay, beta glucuronidase goes up high when we're constipated. Okay, another detrimental impact there. So even if it's something as simple as just doing some breath work, getting adjusted can help to alleviate the pressure on the nerves down there and help to increase flow and function, especially down at the sacrum, tends to help a lot. And then the other thing is making sure you're properly hydrated, and then make sure you have a good quality magnesium supplement in. Okay, in order for you to get the biggest bang for your magnesium buck, if you're not going poop, get a magnesium citrate. Okay, mag citrate will help to blow through that cork for you. Okay, so those are just some simple things. Dietarily speaking, make sure you are getting your fruits and vegetables in during the day, okay? Definitely more vegetables than your fruits, because fruits still have fructose in them. And assumably so, some people will have yeast that will cause their bowels to be very slow. So go ahead and look at your tongue. Look at your tongue there. Mine's a little pinkish, but if you look at your tongue and you've got this big old white coat, like a fresh layer of snow on your tongue, and you didn't just drink, cow's milk, God forbid, please don't, then that can be a sign that you have candida overgrowth or thrush has taken place in your mouth. So do a silvercillin supplement to wash that out and then bring it down. All of this stuff, the simple stuff, so simple. It's so simple, but it can tend to be oversimplified in that we just want to give medicine or supplements to influence these pathways when we have to understand why these things are happening to begin with. All right. Fundamentally speaking, if your adrenals are going haywire, if you're stressed out of your mind all the time, your hormones won't be normal, your digestion won't be normal, your estrogen won't be normal, your progesterone will be tanked. So then it'll lead to more estrogen dominance, right? Or if you're just like, I'm stressed all the time, so I'm just going to eat shitty food all the time. Well, there you go. You're converting your testosterone and things into your estradiol. Then you're going to have more that you're going to have to build up from there. Or if you're like, well, I'm just a full-blown alcoholic because I'm stressed out. Well, there you go. You're going to be depleted of your B vitamins from alcoholism, and you're not going to be able to detox those estrogens out properly, right? So there's a lot of pieces that go into this. The most important piece is understanding where you currently are. Do not assume. Never assume when it comes to your hormones. And if you feel like, man, my hormones are just crazy and nobody can figure out why, well, you probably didn't have a full picture done of your hormones. So of course, it's a missing piece. It's trying to build a puzzle when you only have 3 of the 10 pieces. And you're like, I don't know what this is a picture of. I don't know. I got 3 of them, right? It's actually kind of true. Testosterone, progesterone, and estradiol, 3. It's like 3 pieces of a puzzle. And you're like, what are the other ones? Where are the other puzzles? I don't know. They're somewhere in here. I don't know what they're doing, right? Doctors will only test what they can medicate. That's it. Because insurance will cover that. Insurance will cover your medication. Insurance will cover you covering up something that is seriously wrong, something underlying. It'll cover it up because then it leads you down this portal where, oh, I feel good right now. I just got put on bioidenticals. I'm good. You know how many people I've seen on bioidenticals, whether it's testosterone, estrogen, I'm like, what the hell are they trying to do with these things? And they're like, oh, well, they tested me once beforehand and then they put me on these bioidenticals and then they never tested me afterwards. I'm like, what? They didn't even test it, post-test to see that the dose was right, or you didn't need to pulse it or anything. It just, that's it. And like, no, that was it. Like, oh my God. Okay. All right. So be your own health advocate is going to be another huge thing here, especially if you're going into the realm of battling endocrinologists. There's some of the most annoying docs that are out there, endos, because they think they know everything and they know nothing at all. They're trained to be medicine pushers. That's it. Yeah, I know most medical doctors, they're trained to be medicine pushers, but literally an endocrinologist is going to throw you on birth control 9 times out of 10. You got some sort of hormonal problem, try this new birth control that this hot little rep just brought in. There you go. Take that. Okay? If you want to take charge in your health, I told you to test a run. Run a Dutch, run a GI map, and get that thing sorted out there so that way you know what your hormones are looking like. The cool thing too about that Dutch, we didn't even touch base on it here, is you also get your adrenals. Your adrenals will also tell you what the heck's going on there too. Okay? So there's a whole picture. Go on Dutch.com and check it out. And eventually we're working right now to get a direct purchase link too. So if I'm like, hey, go buy these tests. These are the ones that I would recommend for fill in the blanks. You can go click on a link and boom, you can buy the test. It gets sent right directly to you. So it'll be even easier as this, probably in the next couple of weeks or so, as it gets ruled out. Okay. So that is my not so quick quick tip on estrogen detoxification and why you need to understand everything and why DIM is not the be all end all. Okay. So again, yeah, I'm not going to give you, I was going to give you some tips on like, oh, here's how I influence phase 1, 2, and 3 detoxification, but you won't know. And I don't want to give you tools to use haphazardly because I don't want to cause any harm to your health. And really, quite honestly, I'm not willing to sacrifice your health or my reputation because you just want to know a supplement that can help with something. Nick, is there a generalized whatever? Well, if you're talking hormones, figure out the stool like I talked about. Get the bowels to move, eat healthy, get some magnesium in there, and work on some of the adrenal components of it, reduce some stress as best you can. And then if you're like, well, what else can I do? What else can I take? And I'd say, well, did you do these tests? Okay, because then you're going to get the true answer. All right. So hopefully that helps. For those of you out there, I have to figure out how I can plug this to TikTok because this was, again, a huge question I got on TikTok. So hopefully this answered all your questions on there. But I love y'all. Stay tuned for next time.